John, if you would please serve as our secretary for this evening.
Only if I get Terry's stamp.
You had your shot at a stamp.
Yeah, I think I declared stamps are free images.
Yeah. Okay, so tonight is a special board meeting, Monday, June 30th, 2014, to review the candidates who are going to fill the seat for Terry Cameron, not necessarily replace him. Nobody could ever replace Terry. To fill the seat for Terry Cameron. So we're going to convene the meeting, and John, would you please do the roll?
Sure. Dr. Paterno.
Here.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Here.
Dr. Borelli.
Here.
John Heidi's here. Ms. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Collins.
Here.
Mr. Cameron.
Here.
I think we have everybody.
Okay, now before we start, this being June 30th, this also happens to be Phil Bender's last day in the district, and I just wanted to give one final shout out to Phil as a thank you for his efforts and work over the last 4 years. Tonight we have actually visiting with us because she assumes full-time active duty tomorrow, Dr. Heinz, and I asked Dr. Heinz to sit in with us for a couple of reasons, one of which is just to see how the board reacts and interacts to each other and be helpful for her just to see that as we have a budding and developing ongoing relationship with her. Being that this is an open meeting, there's a call for public comments. And if there is anybody in the audience who'd like to come forward and make a statement, Angela, you can if you'd like, but no? Okay. But if there's no public comments, we'll move on. Just to review, we submitted a application in the early part of June 2nd, I believe, to the community at large, accepting applications for the soon-to-be vacant position on the Board of Education. That position also happens to be our current secretary. That secretary position will be voted on upon Friday night after the individual is seated. So one of the individuals here will be named to that position, voted on by the board. Tonight, however, we are going to specifically be speaking about the individual candidates, and more importantly, you all can read their biographies at home and get a little bit more about them, but what I really want to do is have us prepare our questionings for them, how we're going to conduct the interview, the time frame, so that we are as prepared as possible to expedite this process and be as fair and open to them as we can. There's also an opportunity to adjourn to a closed session, and since tonight we're not interviewing anybody, we're just having these general deliberations. Is there any great desire on anyone's part to go into close for this? I think that this is very appropriate to be an open session, but as we will not be discussing anybody specifically tonight, it's more generalities. But
So let me just make sure I understand this so we're on the same page, because I'm not sure how it was done last time or how we as a team wanted to do it. Are we proposing that we would interview all 12 candidates? Is that what the consensus of the board is, to do all 12? I'm just curious what everyone's opinion is.
my opinion is that we interview all 12 to give everybody a fair shot at it, yes.
Okay.
I would like to do that, but I would like to only do like 10 minutes and we have some kind of, so we're not
Be
spending an hour
organized.
with each candidate.
I'll do fair.
I don't have an opinion on it. If we are, well, maybe the first question is whether we're interviewing all 12 candidates. If we're interviewing all 12 candidates, I don't feel a strong need to go into closed session.
Exactly.
Because we won't be talking about people. Instead, we'll just be talking about process and questions, that we would ask of them. If we do decide to interview fewer than 12, then I would suggest going into closed session to discuss which of the 12 we will interview.
Which is precisely what I wanted to do, what we wanted to do as a group. And I'm open to it all. I just want to make sure that we are interviewing people appropriately to really make the best decision possible. And I guess I do have a little concern if it's 10 minutes a person. I mean, that's pretty quick. Again, it's for a year, and in an election, I don't know, at least you get an opportunity for a half an hour to hear someone at a public forum or things of that nature. So
Well-
I'm fine with interviewing all 12. I'm also fine if we wanted to, pick half a dozen and go from there too, whatever the consensus of the board is, kind of go through the resumes and say, like any job, for better or for worse, these were the 6 as a group we really like, and then let's spend maybe half an hour, 45 minutes with those 6, There's something to be said for that, so
Yeah.
just
Well,
curious what everyone else thought.
as it is, one of the 12 has already contacted me, and she is out of the country. So we're already going to be interviewing just 11 of the 12. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when I ran for election, the only public forum was the Park Ridge Republican Women, and I had 3 minutes. So if we give these folks, and I think it's more than 10 minutes, I think we can easily give 15 to 20 minutes, which would extend it out to about 3 hours, but I think 3 hours is a reasonable amount of time to do these folks. And I don't think that we need to do it in a half hour or 45 minutes. And that's why I think if we organize our questions tonight, and just as we did in our previous process with the superintendent search, where we had the same format, everybody got the same questions, it was fair, we knew what we were looking for answer-wise with the questions, I think we can expedite this process. So if you're comfortable with that, Scott.
I'm fine, I just wanted to know what everyone was thinking. I
Yeah.
don't think we had a discussion group on it, so I wanted to check with everyone. Dan and Terry, I don't know if you have anything on the other end, it's on my side.
No, I mean, I remember a discussion around, kind of concern about open session deliberations, right, that we had a while ago. But in terms of interviewing and all of that, it seems very appropriate in open session. And if we're not going to talk about any of them tonight, then it would certainly, in terms of narrowing the candidates down, it would seem like it'd be a good idea to keep it open.
Yeah. Dan, you okay with all that too?
Yeah, it's fine. It's
Good.
fine. Yeah.
Okay, so without having to go through all these folks, everybody, I don't know if anybody knows the candidates or not knows the candidates. I certainly don't know any of them personally. So I think all 11 who will be ultimately interviewed, and then we'll send out the same email to all 12, and if the person who is out of town happens to be back by then, that's fine. But we will make it, I will make it as fair and even and above board as possible. Just to let everybody know, all of the applications came in. When they were received by the central office, I personally submitted an email to each and every one of them, acknowledging that their applications had been received and that they would be notified as to the interview process going forward. And I purposely left it vague because I wasn't aware if the board wanted to winnow that number down or remain at the 12. So I left that option available. But as we went into this, I think if there was 18, and John, you suggested there was 18 folks last time, that number would be pretty unwieldy. So I imagine you'd have to winnow that down. So, all right.
I've never done this before, and I know that one of the objectives of this board, and one of the things we're trying to do is get transparency. Is it appropriate or necessary for any of us to disclose if we know any of these people, just so everyone knows kind of the game right out of the gates, or does that even not matter? I don't know, I'm just.
I don't think it matters. Personally, I don't think, but if anybody feels compelled that they want to share that information, I don't think it would hurt
I didn't know,
anything.
just trying to keep it as transparent as possible.
On June 9th, we were given some information by Dr. Bender on the board member appointment timeline and process. I assume everybody has got that, reviewed that. It's basically the policy. Along with that, there was some other attachments that were given out on how to conduct the interviews and some suggestions to follow with questions. But this is just a guide. I'm sure you've looked at that, and we all have our own personal thoughts and ideas on how we should go about this. But to do this, I certainly suggest that we have 3 or 4 poignant questions. I don't think that we need to overburden these folks, and just get an idea and feel for their knowledge, their background, and what they intend to do as board members. I say that knowledge and background because these folks are only sitting until the next April election. And in a very short time, they only have a short time, and they don't have the time to learn how to operate and function on the board, much less to become familiar with the issues. So I'd be interested to see how much work these folks have done, looking at old minutes, reviewing videos, becoming familiar with some of the issues that we are dealing with on a week to week, month to month basis. That would be one condition that I would be paramount on, is what their background is with board activity in
You
the
know,
district.
Tony, one way to maybe get at that would be, asking each of the candidates to maybe provide 5 minutes of the 15 or 20, whatever you all decide, as why they want to become a board member, right? And that would flush out some of what you're suggesting, which I think is a really good idea.
I think a simple question like that, I think you're absolutely right, Terry. If you think that a simple question like that would be direct enough, because, with an open question like that, you could really go off in a number of different ways and a number of different tangents. I'm wondering if, and off the top of my head, I can't think of any, a way, and I was thinking of this, and how to properly phrase that so that someone would be able to come to a point quicker rather than later. Something.
Well, it's brainstorming, but what if when we send up the email to say that, they're gonna come next Monday, what if we say, and if you could be prepared to introduce yourself and, tell us in 3 to 5 minutes, why you were applying for this position. So then when they sat down, they could hi, Vicki Lee, one of the reasons I'd like to run is, and then a couple more questions.
Well, actually, you raise a good point, Vicki. You're suggesting, therefore, we give them the questions in advance.
I'm just thinking when Dathan and I applied and Scott reran, we went to a forum and we were allowed 3 minutes to talk about ourselves and give background, and then they threw questions at us. I think it's fair.
Yeah.
And I think you have to get the questions to them in advance for the simple reason that we are conducting the interviews in open session. And believe me, candidates 10 and 11 will know exactly what the questions are. So there's no reason that candidates 1 and 2 shouldn't also know in advance what the questions are. Plus, this is an open session, so
Right.
everybody who happens to be watching the video this evening will know what the questions are. So I might as well say them. And I think if we do 15-minute interviews, and I'm thinking 15 minutes times 11 puts us at 175 minutes, which is about 3 hours with no bathroom breaks. So it's really more like 4 hours by the time we're done with it. That's probably about as much as we can sit without going brain dead all in one evening. If you give folks 5 minutes to do an introduction, you probably only have time for 2 more questions. To wrap that.
Which brings out another point, which is what Scott brought up initially. Should we maybe talk about willing demos? I mean,
I'm okay with the 11. And I think if we go 15 to 20 minutes, certainly no more than that. But I think if we have the questions pre-planned and formatted properly, I think we know what we're going to do. And you know me, I always have my stopwatch going, so folks will be tired.
Could we supplement the questions that we want to ask in person
With writing.
with something in writing expected at that next Monday's meeting?
The only issue we'll have with that, Nathan, is that we'll then after we're done interviewing people,
Review
take the
it.
time to read it, synthesize it, and then have the deliberations. That could be a long night. I love the idea of written questions. I almost wonder if they do sooner.
Well, you can have them sooner.
You know what I mean, we haven't published that, but could we say, could you maybe get us something by Thursday so we can have it Friday and see over the weekend how they responded to the questions?
We can have a one-page, actually, for the first question, why couldn't we have a one-page document asking them to put in writing why they want to have this seat on the board, and that would give us that 15 minutes to delve into other areas.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, many of them did in their introductory
Yes,
letters, they kind of just outlined a little bit, maybe not in the detail we'd like, but, maybe that's a good place to ask the question of how have you prepared?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, as opposed to why you want to run. I might want to hear someone answer that question a little more personally, but are there specific things you've done to prepare for this? Are there, I don't know, but I don't mind the idea of enough of a written question too, as long as we have a little time to digest it.
So how about the first question that, I love this idea, by the way. So the first question might be something to the effect that, why are you interested in filling the seat on the Board of Education, and what background, what efforts? No, I don't
What
want
do
to
you
put
think
efforts.
we can add?
I almost wonder, well, I don't disagree with that, but I'm just gonna, I'll throw it on, I'll try and get there. I like that question in the session here, because it might spark more conversation about substantive issues. I almost wonder if we ought to ask them, like, the questions that are sort of the, what have you done to prepare? What do you think is the biggest
Yeah.
issue facing this? The more specific questions, maybe in the written format, so that the dialogue with only 15 minutes can be a little more of an actual get to know the individual, because I agree that their preparedness is one leg of the table, but it is only one leg of the table, and
Yeah.
there's several others I'd like to look at a little bit too.
I like that. Can I propose one?
Yeah,
All
right.
right. What do you perceive to be the most pressing or vexing challenge District 64 faces? And what ideas or strengths might you have that you could bring to the board if you are elected?
Repeat that?
You wrote it down. So
Auf
you
Deutsch?
think you'll do it.
What do you perceive to be the most pressing or vexing challenge District 64 faces? And what ideas or strengths might you have that you could bring to the board if you are elected?
The only thing that doesn't do is give me an insight into how much preparation they have for assuming the position.
But I think that particular question's not designed to do
Right,
that. I
right.
think under Scott's idea, you would then ask a preparation
Yeah.
question here in the open
Right,
meeting.
in person.
Maybe there's
Yeah.
2 and 3 questions, and we can get some of the technical
To
details
derive
of their
from that,
background,
yeah.
and then we can
Derive
have
from
more of a
that.
conversation here and get to know the individual.
I wouldn't mind adding to that, maybe in the written format as well, something about perceived strengths of the district as well. Because I can probably learn something by what,
Yeah.
both about preparation, what I know, but also what do they value? By, what do they say
I like that a lot.
strengths are?
So similarly, what do you perceive to be
Yeah.
a particular strength of the district, and how do you, what might you have to offer
To
to
build
maintain
on
or
it,
build
something
on
like
that,
that,
something like
yeah.
that, okay.
So maybe a preparedness
I like them
question.
both.
Yeah, and a question about what they need, what the district has as its challenges, and one about its strengths. I think those would be 3 fair out of the gate questions for us to digest something about the individuals, and then
What-
have a conversation.
And actually, that encompasses so much that just have them answer that one question and we can feed off of that answer. We don't need to have any other prepared questions on
Well,
us.
I agree, too much, I think would be too laborious, and it would be too
Because-
for us to digest.
Because what you have incorporated in that is, what do you perceive as strengths? What do you perceive as negatives?
It gives us a sense of
And
what,
challenges.
What's on their radar screen,
Yeah.
and, what their priorities are.
And then maybe we synthesize Vicky's idea where the first then 4 or 5 minutes is, tell us who you are and why you want to be a board member. Combine that with the things we've read, and it might spark a conversation for the last 10 to 12.
Exactly,
I'd
exactly.
be very comfortable with that.
Yeah. So for the umpteenth time, can you just go through that question again?
Yeah. What do you perceive to be the most pressing or vexing challenge?
Perceived to be the most, because I have to email this to everybody, so. To
Well, I
be
could
the
do
most,
that.
well, I'm gonna go through Madeline,
Oh,
because
okay.
Madeline's got everybody's address and
All
all
right,
that.
carry on.
so. Thank you.
The
What
most
do you
pressing
perceive to be the most pressing?
or vexing challenge District 64 faces? And what ideas or strengths might you have that you could bring to the board if you are elected? And then we could add, additionally, what particular strength does District 64 possess?
Well, I think you're repeating yourself there, because you're already asking what the most pressing or vexing challenges. How about just add one word in there, to be the most pressing or vexing challenge and greatest attribute.
I'd like to have them separated
I'd
so that they're
separate.
they're separate thought processes.
Because otherwise it's too easy to document.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree with you.
Two separate questions.
Yeah, I think so. And, yeah, what do you think are the greatest strengths or,
Additionally,
Yeah,
what
What is a particular strength?
do you feel?
Is a particular strength?
Maybe ask them instead of like, how do you approach it? What if we ask them, and why? Why do you value that strength? You see what I'm saying? Get to what John's talking about, why particularly do you see that as a strength? Or, are there other areas that the district could reinforce that strength? Or something along those lines. You know what I mean?
Additionally, what do you feel is a particular strength of the district and why?
Yeah,
That's
Staying on, they can project whatever they want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
and then you're ending about why would you, if you were allowed to, what would you? So it could be,
To do that,
And then, how have you or will you go about preparing for, being a board member?
That would come from there, yeah.
And those three questions, I think would be great.
And you do the first two in writing, and how would you prepare
In oral.
person?
I was suggesting more those three in writing,
Oh,
and
okay.
maybe just who are you and why are you running for this, or why are you volunteering to be on the school board as the question to start.
It would give us more time with them. That's the.
Yeah,
get
so
all
that's
that
why
out
I
of the
get
way.
that answer of how you prepared, because it's interesting, but they're almost facts,
Right.
not a lot of discussion.
So three in writing, one is the
Yeah.
lead off for the discussion.
And should we give them guidance as to we're not looking for 30-page essays here? I mean,
Yes.
half a page to a page is more than
More
enough
than
per
enough.
question.
Yeah.
Don't feel
Oh,
like
for
you need
question.
to write a tome here this committee.
So the third
Or just
question,
leave a maximum amount of words, and just say
Yeah.
no more than 300 words, right? Because honestly, I don't wanna read more than 300 words either, right? I mean, if you can't capture what you wanna say in 300 words, you probably don't have some good stuff there.
well, how many words on a sheet? What is it?
250 is a page.
250 is a
I
page?
think one page
Double spaced or
is
single
more than I
spaced?
would.
I think it's like college.
Well, Ann would know. Ann, how many words on a page, single spaced?
I count mentions, I don't know.
I'm glad to say I don't remember APA stuff, so I think it's 250 for a double space.
Well,
You're probably about right.
I-
Probably about right.
I was gonna suggest 500 words.
But if we can
Cover the whole
Hopefully we
thing?
got a
I
computer
think that's adequate, 500 for the whole thing.
500 for the whole thing? That seemed reasonable? Okay.
For all three questions?
Yeah,
All together.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yes, we're not looking for a dissertation here.
One other thing, did we capture on there what involvement or past knowledge with District 64 do you have that prepares you for this role with those three
Yeah,
questions?
let-
Is that captured there?
yeah, let- let me repeat all three questions, Dan.
Please, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so the first question is, what do you perceive to be the most pressing or vexing challenge D64 faces, and what ideas or strengths that you have that you would bring to the board if elected? The second is, additionally, what do you feel is a particular strength of the district and why? And the third question is, what have you done to prepare for the position?
Okay.
And what's the
Yeah, okay, yeah, all three of those answered 500 words?
250 is a page. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
so 500 for all three?
Well, one page, yeah, I looked it up, it was 250 a page, right?
So 500 for all
No more than
three?
500.
That's right.
Okay, good, done.
I kinda used the 50, okay, good.
Okay.
And I,
And then, so if we have this, I'm gonna suggest that we have this back and it's disseminated to all board members by Friday evening, Friday early afternoon, and we'll have all weekend to look at it, and we can talk about this on Monday, yes?
Holiday weekend.
Oh, that's right, Friday is the 5th, isn't it?
that was the fourth.
The 4th. It's one of those days, yeah.
We need it by Thursday.
I don't know how long it would take us to go through 11 of those.
Yeah, if I had it at some point in time by Sunday, I'd be fine. Give it something else.
Well, the problem is getting it to everybody.
Yeah.
Because what I'm gonna have to do is have them come to me, and disseminate them, and collate them.
Well, can I suggest that they go to either Lori or Madeline?
Well, yeah.
And then they could be,
Scan and
that-
email.
Well, they should be emailed.
well, they should be emailed, so they're gonna come in electronically. All somebody has to do is write an email with 11 attachments and send it to the 7 of us.
Well, everybody's gonna be gone, so that's gonna be me over the weekend.
I'll do it for you, Tony, if you need help.
Yeah.
If the
Well, it's
administration-
easy enough, it just
And-
takes time.
and Tony, I'd suggest that it come into somebody employed by the district, rather than, one of our personal accounts or something. So my suggestion would be, have it come into Lori and Madeline, and Lori, if we can prevail on you a little bit over the weekend, to just compile an email and send it out to us, that, makes it
That would be fine
easier
by
on
me, and,
all of us.
yeah, I mean, as long as I have it sometime, by 8, 9 o'clock, send it out, right
Right.
through Sunday night.
Yeah, so on.
Okay.
As long as everyone else
So
is
when is
comfortable
the
with that time.
deadline for the electronic submission of these?
Well, if Friday is the 4th, we're gonna want it,
Yeah, how about, that's
Fri-
the 5 p.m.
Friday's the
Saturday,
5th.
Saturday.
So how about, give them a little more time, how about telling them Sunday 5 p.m.? And then if you get
No,
it
that's too late.
by 5, well, no, if you get it by 5 p.m., then we can have it by, say, 7 p.m.
Well, that's asking too much of Lori, personally. I think by Saturday at 5 p.m., that would give you Sunday to forward this on. Is that-
Or whatever you think is fine with me, actually.
Is that reasonable, Saturday?
Well, I mean,
I differ.
I don't care that much. I'm trying to be sensitive to people who are trying to volunteer for something and then being asked to give up a part of their 4th of July weekend, and trying to give them as much time as they can.
Well, personally, for me, I'd rather have it, like, if I can have it, like, by Saturday, by, like, 5 o'clock or something, like, first thing Sunday morning, that helps me a lot, because Monday's gonna be a crazy day.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's gonna have it off, so if we could have it, Saturday by 5 o'clock, that would go a long way.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan.
But if you did email it tomorrow, would that
Well,
Tuesday, Wednesday?
Email's gonna go out tomorrow morning, so, but that should be plenty of time.
Especially because you're putting some restriction on the thing.
We'll get them to us about Thursday. Yes.
I'm guessing too.
So there's always that quote, right, sorry, this is so long, I didn't have time to make it short.
Right, yes.
It almost takes longer to make it 2:50.
All right, so forward
So are we doing Saturday at 5 or by Sunday morning?
Saturday.
Yeah, that's fine, if it works better for the board.
And that may help weed out some of the candidates here too, so you may just not have, the wherewithal to do that.
Right. But I think that gives them plenty of time. That's all in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's 5 days to
The
think about
last board
this.
shows a beautiful Saturday afternoon, it's about 83 degrees and sunny, and said, come on, make three interviews that day. So that's how they
Is that
went.
right on a
It was
Saturday?
Gorgeous that day.
It's all over.
So, Scott, do you have any other thoughts?
I think these are good questions, I think it's a great approach, synthesizing the two ideas we have here, Vicky and Dave Finn, and putting them together, I like it a lot.
Good, good. And then we can certainly feed off of this. And then there will be a hard time frame. I really don't think that we need to spend 45 minutes with these folks, particularly with the written component. And I think we can get to know some background on them pretty quickly, pretty readily. So, Dan, Terry, any comments?
Nope, it's a good approach, and I wish everyone the best of luck.
Do we have a,
I guess the only question I would have is, well, what does that leave us to talk about on Monday? Are we just, we're gonna, or the following Monday, is that just gonna, we're just gonna come with questions that we get from that reading, and we're just gonna hold ourselves accountable for spending no longer than 10, 15 minutes of each one?
Well, I think it gives us the opportunity of focusing on the individual, though, Dan. We can really look at their individual responses and ask them, well, why did you say this, or what do you mean when you say this? And everybody should have a slightly different take, I would hope, anyway.
Yeah, I was just more worried about just knowing our group, and myself included, is can we hold ourselves, we just have to make sure we're gonna hold ourselves for 10, 15 minutes, we'll have to agree on that for each person.
Oh, yeah.
And after that,
Yeah.
If each of us had 2 questions for each of them after reading that, it could quickly spiral into, a long session.
Yeah, that's not the intention, and I certainly have been the time cop on past meetings, so I'll continue that.
well, I might suggest that we set a hard 15-minute limit, and we actually run a timer during the interview, and when the timer goes off, that's just over.
Yeah, and I
I like that, John, I like that idea.
well, I do run a timer when we have public forums and folks get up. I take my iPhone out and I run the stopwatch, and I do the old slit neck thing, so time is over. So, yeah, we can do that, and and hold a hard time on 15.
Do we have a start time for the meeting next Monday?
6:30.
Okay.
Does anybody want to move that to 6?
Yes. I mean, it's difficult for me from a work schedule perspective, but I think from a sanity perspective. Because I think even at 15 minutes, we're gonna have to take a few breaks during the evening.
Yeah.
And as a result, if we start at 6, we probably don't begin deliberating until close to 10 o'clock.
Right.
And, so we're already looking at a meeting that runs till
11.
midnight or after.
I think six can work. Everyone else is good.
Dan, how are you doing for 6?
Sorry, I have a very early flight the next morning, so I mean, guys, I would start as soon as you guys will let me. So you guys tell me 6 works for me. If you guys want to move it to 5, move it to 5. So whatever you guys want.
I can already get the candidates still at 5.
Yeah, 5 might be tough.
But I'm with you, Dan, I hear you.
It'd be tough for me, actually, much less the candidates.
It's here, right?
It'll be here at the Hendy Center, yes.
Will you offer a specific schedule, like slotted appointments?
It's a good point, Bernadette. I think what will happen, and Bernadette asked the question, she doesn't have the microphone. She asked a specific schedule of the candidates. And I think once this letter goes out to everybody, as they respond, first come, first serve, and they'll just fit into the slots. That's probably the most equitable way of doing it.
Just let people know that. I would just say that on the email, that's our intent, and that we manage to get them in sooner rather than later.
Right.
And each of the candidates will have the opportunity, since it's open session, right? So whoever goes last gets the benefit of everybody else's response, right? Hearing everybody else's response.
Oh, yeah, you're right, Terry. Maybe it's better to go last, right? I guess maybe the sooner you get it in the last, I never thought about that.
Well, remember though, to do that, they would have to be here for the entire time. I don't think people are going to be here for 4 hours listening to other people talk. So
If we were to set it up, just say in 20-minute intervals, right? 6, 6:20, 6:40. And then what we do is we say, when you submit your thing, give us your 3 or 4 best times, because maybe someone has a work schedule or a babysitter situation, they can't be here till 7. And then as the responses come in with the answers, that's when we'll consider it submitted. And if you really need 8 o'clock because of some situation that particular day, you know what I mean? Because we're kind of giving them short notice and we're not noticing these meetings and stuff. Maybe we just let them in first come, first serve on that. We'll try to do the best we can.
Right.
And we'll publish a schedule that Sunday night.
And that's another, and if it's coming to Lori and Madeline, one of both of them,
Yeah.
figure out the schedule.
Yeah, if you don't care, we'll slot you in wherever. And then we can publish it Sunday night or Monday, and then they know. So if they don't want to sit through everybody's answer session, they can come at 8 o'clock.
right.
Maybe that would work.
Okay, so Cal, what you're saying is if you drop it in first, you get it back to us first, then you get first choice at
Yeah.
slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the fair way to do it, right?
Yeah. You took the time to really get that essay in.
Yeah.
So I'll ask everybody to give me their 3 preferred times, and we'll go from there.
You're gonna do.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody's going to want 6:15. So,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. Anything that we've left untouched? I think we've covered quite a bit actually in an hour's time, or half hour's time. This could be a new record.
Yeah.
I don't know. As I craft this, I mean, basically I've written down notes and such. Does everybody have to see this before it goes out, or can I just send this out?
No.
Fine with me.
Terrific. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Any other points? Any other thoughts? Any other concerns?
I mean, you said there'll be 11. We start at 6, we're going at 9 to keep to that schedule. Good 15 minutes, gives you a quick minute or two in between.
Deliberation should take about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, I'm thinking.
I love your
I'll
optimism.
more.
I'm gonna bet the over if Vegas is taking odds.
Should take about 45 minutes, as I said, but we'll see. We'll see.
And for 2 different times, because I make a little schedule for Tony,
Yeah.
are you doing 15 or 20 minutes? Because I've heard different amounts of time.
15, a hard
My
15.
my
It shouldn't be
suggestion
20
would be hard 15, but I would schedule them in 20-minute increments.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Because otherwise we'll be running behind pretty quickly.
Then if you put yourself,
Right.
give yourself realistically a couple, after every 3 or 4 interviews, a little buffer, does that work?
Yeah, or actually, the idea of 20-minute slots for
Gives the
15-minute
buffer.
interviews gives some buffer. If you want to make it 15-minute slots, then after every 3, have a 15-minute break. That's another way to go.
Oh, that's too much time.
Yeah, or whatever. I will defer to those with pens and paper.
All right, so one final shout out. Any other thoughts, or have we skipped anything? I think we've got it.
Spend a couple minutes on the retreat, just to kind of go over the time frames for that.
Sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and drop off if that's all right.
All righty, and Terry, thank you for everything, Terry. I appreciate you coming in on your last day.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, and I really look forward to hearing the outcome here, and wish the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Good luck to you.
Thanks, Terry.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So the retreat, Friday night, the 11th. No, yes, the 11th. Friday night, the 11th. And I think we are scheduled to start at, is it 6 or 6:30?
5:30.
5:30, thank you. And that will be held, traditionally we go over to the Emerson LRC, and I believe I arranged that with Joel to reserve that space. On Saturday morning, I think we have that at 8 o'clock.
8:30 is, but 8 is fine.
Yeah, I usually get there
8:30
early.
is,
And how late
What
were you
time is
thinking that
Barb
will go?
leaving?
she's 8:30.
So she'll start at 8:30? Does anybody feel the need to get there a little earlier so that we can have a discussion on what transpired the day before as a recap? And then we can get started right away at 8:30 with Barb Tony.
I don't mind starting earlier.
I defer to you and Lauren, because you guys have a better sense of the schedule. If you want me there at 8, I'll be there at 8.
All right, well, let's plan on 8 then on Saturday, okay?
Do you have an expectation of how long either Friday or Saturday will run at this point? I
Till-
guess it's hard to tell.
The 12th, we were really thinking 8:30 to 3:30 was the target, and then the 11th, 5 to 9, 5 to 8:30.
It'll go longer than 9 because of the stuff we're doing. You'll be done no later than 10 on Friday, and you'll be done no later than, I hate to say 5, but I'm gonna try and keep it to 4.
Yeah, 4 o'clock would be.
4 o'clock the latest.
Yeah, I'm out of there at 2:30, just so you know.
We'll try to.
Last year, I think we went to 5 on Saturday, and probably a little later than on Friday.
Yeah, I think we should try to make every effort possible so that we're all there and that's at 3:30. If we start, losing people, man, that's gonna be a long day. If we start probably losing the substance we want, so.
Okay. And so 5 to 9 on the 11th, and 8:30 to 3:30 will be our target time on 12th. Or did we say 8?
8, right.
8 to 3:30 on Saturday.
5:30. Could you repeat those times, please?
On Friday, it's 5:30, tentatively till 9. And on Saturday, it'll be 8 until 3:30. Lori and I have kind of fixated the agenda. We haven't gotten out to everybody yet, but it'll be coming.
It's almost done. And draft all things tomorrow, and
Okay. So it sounds like any other questions on any other items coming up, or everybody good? Okay, one thing that did come up, I want to apprise everybody. After Lori Hinton's presentation at our last meeting, it stimulated some thoughts, in my head at least, and I think at least in a couple of other folks. I would like to revisit, and Dr. Heinz is sitting right here, I would like to revisit this curriculum piece in the form of one of our CAF meetings, our mini CALs, where we can take these numbers and again delve into it. Several months ago, we had about a 2.5, 3-hour presentation on curriculum. And at least my 3 years on the board, I don't think that this board has had enough background in the curriculum. We have a wonderful opportunity now of getting into it to the level where we have a better opportunity to get a much deeper appreciation. So I've already asked Dr. Heinz to get some information together, and it'll take a little bit of time to prepare for this. And are you planning for perhaps September, October?
I have a meeting scheduled on the 14th with Dr. Hinton and Dr. Collins, superintendent in the Dallas Township area that has worked extensively with NWA and MAP on data, electrical setting, how to set your proper, achievement targets based on what it is as a district you're looking for, or striving for. That preliminary meeting is scheduled for the 14th. Once we have that meeting on July 14th, we will look to see when a reasonable time to get a special board meeting together. Probably sometime after we get the school year up and running. So we can look at the schedule, we have our first planning meeting for one of our upcoming July meetings. We can get it on the books.
Sure. So let's plan for September then.
But that'll be a special session for the board, and I will invite all the administrators to attend as well. Because I think it's important for all of us to understand at a greater level of depth how MAP works, what it measures, and how we should use that data as one data point to track how we're doing as a district. So it should be great training for everybody involved.
Yes. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I have one thought. So, Dr. Heinz, there, if you're, when the goal of that meeting in September, right, is that the administration is going to give us some strong recommendations for both math and reading on how we think we should communicate with the community on how we're going to measure success, right?
Well, I think it might be a multi-step meeting. I think the meeting in September will be a real training session so the board better understands, as well as administration better understands, how to goal set and what those targets mean when you're setting an average growth target, when you're setting an aggressive or an ambitious target, what that looks like. So we're going to focus on that. And then once we have clarity around how to use that data and what those data points tell us, then I think we need to look at our educational lens and our deliverables to see if any changes need to be made to our targets.
So what I would say to that is that I think as a board and administration, we should set fine. Dr. Heinz has probably needed for us to do that, but we should set a goal of that we will have measurements that we can communicate or ways that we feel comfortable measuring our success for reading and math by the end of the year, by the end of 2014. That we're all going to be on board on it. At least a consensus from the board on that. I think that we don't want this to drag on any further where the year goes by and another year goes by and we still don't have a way that we can tell the community we're measuring our success. So that's one board member's thought, and I would like us to set a goal by the end of the year.
Yeah,
I would agree, and I think that's why Monday evening I reached out to Dr. Collins as a result of the conversation I was hearing at the board meeting as an audience participant. It seemed that we weren't clear as a board in terms of, did we feel as though we had the right deliverables, did we set the right target, do we have enough understanding on what those targets truly mean? So I feel as though we might be spot on once we've had that training, or we might not. But I think until we've been deeply trained, we can't set a different goal, or we can't, change directions. So I think we need to do that first, with the outcome being, absolutely, we're gonna set a target and we're gonna drive at
By
it.
the end of the year, we're all on the same page and we're all singing from the same hymnal.
Exactly.
I think that's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah. I'm with you there, Dan. I do want to see some goals set forth, but I think we need to know the background better before we can plan where we want to be.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think, we're all there.
Yep.
So, okay, so, if there's not any more thoughts, or suggestions, I can run with what we have. And if that's the case, how about a motion to close?
So moved.
And prior to closing, I want to say tomorrow is Dr. Heinz's first day, so, welcome
Thrilled to be
and
here.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Welcome aboard, Lori.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to